all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Everything's working. You never know in this room. So just real quickly, just in terms of my updates, I would like to highlight that the budget referendum is being held on May 14th. We held a public hearing last week. We had a lot of questions that I know members of the public had, it was 2 weeks ago, I guess. And those, the answers to those questions are available online. You'll go down and see like a button you can click on that takes you to the budget referendum section. There'll be questions of all the answers to all the questions that were posed at the public hearing, as well as links to relevant documents. So we wanted to get that out there. So May 14th is election day, but you can actually vote absentee ballot for the budget referendum, and those ballots are now available in the town clerk's office. So please go to the town clerk's portion of the website to find out more about the process to submit an absentee ballot. The other thing I want to mention is, and did want to highlight too, that just as a reminder, town officials, elected officials, cannot be advocating for the budget once we call the referendum. And so that's why the public might wonder why we can give facts and information and obviously advocate to vote because it's important to vote. But we can do so privately, but in terms of using town resources, we can't advocate necessarily for the budget. So just wanted to highlight that. The third thing I wanted to mention was that we've all had some conversations, both at our last couple of meetings, we've had a very engaged public, and a lot of discussion about what the appropriate conduct and rules are for our meeting during public comment. And I think it raised a lot of interesting issues about, do you have to give your name and address? Do you have to, so it's really, I think, a board policy discussion it might be worth doing where we could post it, somewhere so people understand what the code of conduct is or what our process and policy is for handling questions from the public. And so I thought I'd put that on a future agenda, maybe in May, and we can talk about how we would want to just spell it out more simply so there's no confusion or expectations different than how we conduct our meetings.
I think that's a great idea. And I think in an age where the agendas are published electronically, attaching the process
That's a good
to
idea.
that,
Yeah.
so that it's available for every
just down here with all the,
Yeah.
all the goodies.
yeah. And even like we have a Zoom link, there could be a rules for public
Or a
comment.
right a header.
as
link.
well.
That's actually a good idea.
Belt and suspenders, but I think part of the frustration is people come in thinking it's one thing and it's really another thing. And I think we've learned some stuff in doing like research, like you're only supposed to be able to talk about what's on the agenda. I think I've always said for the last 8-9 years, come in and speak your mind about anything. It's it's your opportunity to say whatever you want to say. And in reality, FOIA says no, time out. It's what's on the agenda is what public comment is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I think we can decide how we want to manage that, when we want to respond, and I think lay out some of the ground rules for that. And I also think people use the term town meeting loosely, right? So sometimes a public hearing is very different from a formal town meeting where we're having voting. Or a board of selectmen meeting or board of finance meeting. So trying to make sure that, there's people understand that it's very different in terms of what's the purpose of the meeting is and what is conducted at the meeting.
Right.
Peggy, would these rules apply to all boards and commissions or just this one?
I mean, it's a fair question. I think we start with us. And then, sometimes we can make suggestions to maybe each chair, because I feel they know their boards, they know their audience, they know their regulations and things that they have to follow. Maybe we have like a recommendation of conduct or policy, but you can adopt your own, particularly those boards that get a lot of public engagement. So
Like P&Z.
Throwing
Throwing out there, saw a lot of head nods in the audience.
And I think that they actually do a great job at that because it's very regulatory in nature of when people can talk, like we're not in that same zone necessarily. So I think it'll be a good conversation, and then if we could set up something that we think is best practice maybe, and then other boards could adopt it if they wanted to adopt it. So that was just part of my comment, because Scott and I had talked about it, and I didn't put it on tonight, but I think I'll probably put it on for May. So we can and something kind of us to work through to talk about.
I'm pretty sure all 5 of us are gonna be in violent agreement on this.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's gonna help, I think, structure the
Yeah.
meeting and just lay the ground, so.
Well, I think it helps, yeah, I think that you need structure and you need respect, right? But we also don't want to disappoint people too, right? And feel like they're not being heard. So it's trying to find that good balance where people are feeling they're being heard, but we're doing it in an orderly way and a respectful way.
And
So,
I'm usually cool with, to your point of like off agenda comment, as long as it's a comment, we're not expecting an answer that night or that immediate, during the comment, I'm okay with that. But maybe 2-3 minutes. I mean, I think there's a conversation we have to think.
And all of those are on the table, right? The duration of the public comment
There you go.
period during the
Yeah.
meeting,
Right.
each speaker, the number of, times at the microphone.
right,
Yeah, we've seen that recently, right, for sure.
So I don't think any of it is intended to stifle any voice. Ideally, if people would come in with a clear idea of what it is they want to say.
Maybe organizes, which I think is a
Right.
smart thing.
So
Yeah.
I think a little structure works well for everybody, and of course, we always reserve the right to be flexible.
and other towns do have this, so we've
Right.
started looking a little bit at what some other towns
Sounds good.
might have as a best practice, so it's not where we're starting from scratch. No one's ever thought of this before.
Right.
We just never felt really a need, but I do think with more engagement, it's important to have some ground rules, so.
But especially with the bigger projects going on too, I think it's important for us to have the ground rules at these meetings because we do have a number of items on our agendas that we need to get through. But I do think it's also important that maybe we offer, like if there's a big project going on, some public information sessions throughout the course. I know that was really important.
Specific
for-
on that, yeah.
Specific to that project. I know it was really important with the school project, that we had those, because then it does give folks
agree.
the opportunity to have that little bit of
Back and forth.
back and forth dialogue.
And we did that for Academy
Yeah.
prior to the referendum as well.
And
So-
even just the budget, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, just continuing to have those and publicize those, but yeah, we need to make sure we stay on task with the agendas.
Okay, so that is my update, and any other liaison reports or selectmen comments?
I have a couple. I'll be
Good.
quick. Okay, so Affordable Housing Committee, they,
It's kind of long, actually.
Handwritten in 2.5, no big deal.
the Affordable Housing Committee, they are gonna do another community conversation in May. Date is pending on that, but they're planning on doing it at the senior center. Senior Commission, we are having the Cafe Grand reopening on Thursday, May 16th at noon. And if anybody would like to attend that, RSVPs need to be in by May 13th.
What was the date? In what?
May 16th is the reopening celebration and RSVP
I'm
by the
RSVPing now.
13th. I was the first one, so you know.
I just
I
did
mean,
the
I'm
Austin
assuming,
thing.
I don't.
Also, for the budget referendum, the senior center does have the dial-a-ride program and bus service, if anybody needs help getting to the polls. We just ask that you make sure that you schedule that as soon as possible so that they can plan all of their routes. And then, Austin, since you're here, you get the in-person thank you for the quick work over on the soccer fields at Salt Meadow. I got a notification from a coach, there was a hole, probably a dog hole, and Austin and his team was right on it. And same with John Ianecco and Public Works for the craters that were in the parking lot. I think within 30 minutes of sending that email, his team was out there regrading and filling in those holes. So thank you.
What field was that at?
Salt Meadow.
Saldo.
Yep, so thank you guys for
Those
all
are
the work
recurring
on
craters
that.
too, right? We get those a lot.
Every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
water.
And then one last thank you to Fred Muzzer. I know.
Muser.
Is it
Muser.
Muser? Fred Muser.
Yeah.
A lot of folks in town know Fred, and so about 5 years ago, he alerted John Michael Parker to the lack of a memorial up at the Capitol that was dedicated to our Vietnam War veterans. So under Fred's leadership, They tracked down 616 names, raised over $8,000. And just on the 17th of this month, they unveiled 3 plaques up at the Capitol that have the names, hometowns, and branches of service for those service members that, you know, gave their greatest sacrifice for others. And Fred did that all along with the help of John Michael Parker and the other members of our American Legion Griswold Post 79. So just want to thank Fred for all of his leadership on that project.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
I know, he's talked about it for so long.
Yes, he has,
And
yeah.
so I know I was thrilled to see that be success. It was the only veterans group that hadn't been recognized. All the other, you know, conflicts.
Yep.
There were memorials. So that was right, a great accomplishment. Any other updates or?
So I just want to I had a really good conversation with a resident about the beach passes and Garvin Point and the idea that we were only going to be under the state grant restrictions for a year. And I explained that unfortunately the project was delayed. So when we said all of that, we thought it was going to be this last winter and it would all be done by now. And it's just been delayed. And so
The permitting
if people
process.
understood it to be a fixed 1-year period, apologies. It was really the duration of the project, which we expected to only be 1 year. Of course, we had to redesign the system and all of that. But in the course of that, I did some investigations, and Fairfield has a great policy around parking permits. And I would commend to us as we think about what our policy is going to be moving forward post grant restrictions, that Fairfield would be one of the towns we look at for guidance and just outright plagiarism.
Well, the whole, you know,
Well,
we kind of committed in the previous meeting, we're gonna do a review again of everything, right? So I think
Right.
that's fair. That's good to do. Anything else or? Al, any updates? No? Good?
no.
Okay, great. I know you got a lot going on, so. All right, with that then, citizens' comments. Raquel, do we have any hands raised for citizens' comments? And a reminder that there's an opportunity at the end of the meeting if you want to ask a question, or I should say, make a comment, as well.
No, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you, Raquel.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to item number 6, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Any further comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passes unanimously. All right, moving on to item number 7, is, and I'll, Raquel, if you could invite up, I know Dr. Cook is here, and I'm not sure if there's members of the Board of Education on this matter, but discuss and take action to approve a request by the Board of Education to return $226,541 in 2022-2023 funds to the Special Education External Placement Reserve Fund and authorizing for use to cover an unanticipated cost in the current fiscal year pending Board of Finance approval.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, so this is, our board members received a memo outlining this, and this is one of the reasons we have this fund set up is because this has happened occasionally where something much larger happens with special education, which can have some very large, lumpy, unpredictable costs. And so we've typically allowed the Board of Education to do this with funds because every year they usually return some funds back to the town. But I'll let Dr. Cook talk a minute about this and answer any questions for you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lyons. The board received the memo that we provided you. We had some unanticipated costs, mostly related to legislative action that occurred after our budget was submitted and approved last year. And so there were additional costs for our 18 to 22-year-old program. And then also we've experienced some additional outplaced costs this year. And so what we would ask is that the funds we returned to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance in probably was around October timeframe by the time everything was worked out and returned. that be put back into our special ed fund for immediate use in those areas that I described.
Any additional questions? I know this is, do you know when the last time we did this kind of transaction? Because I know we've had to do this in the past. I just don't remember how long ago it was.
A year ago, you returned funds to us to pay for the armed security. So it's similar to that type of request in that it's money that we return to the town that then is returned to us for use immediately. What's different about this one is that it's special ed, and we do have that reserve fund. It typically runs around $350,000. We really try not to touch that because $350,000 could reflect, 2 students that maybe moved into town that were unanticipated. Special ed outplacement costs have a tendency to be pretty fluid and volatile. And so, we would still be able to, through this action, our intent is to leave it still at 350 at the end of this year. But this would help with a gap we have in that budget right now.
Okay, any other questions? I mean, this is a good thing. We're fortunate that we have the funds to handle this, because sometimes this could be a big budget buster for them, right? So we're grateful. No further questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right, thank you. So that'll go on to the finance approval. The next item on the agenda, item number 8, is an update from the chair and vice chair of our planning and zoning commission on their plan of conservation and development and discussion of the draft document. So we did get the draft, and I fully confess, I did a quick screw. I'm not ready to provide comments, but it is an incredible piece of work and it's very well written. I love your intro letter.
Thank you.
But I thought it'd be helpful to talk about the process, and then we could figure out how we can give you some of our feedback more formally,
Sure,
once
right,
we've gone through the document.
right, so, yeah, here it is, we're
Yeah.
very proud of it, 100 pages.
Whoa.
Don't know how that happened, but.
Like that told me.
Yeah, a nice number, and I thought what I'd do, so this is Bob Reinhardt, who's our vice chair now, and has been integral in the process, and especially in getting us to the finish line with it so far, right? And I thought what I'd do though is give a quick review of the process and where we've been, and I've been here a couple of times before to share with you, and then what we've done since the last time I presented to the board. And then talk a little bit, if you have any questions about sort of the implementation part of it is what's most important at this point, and we didn't have that last time we came here, so that's key. So yeah, we started the process in September 2022, which seems like about a century ago. I then came to the Board of Selectmen in March 2023 just to let you know how we were proceeding and what we had done so far. We were back again in January 2024 to give you an update, and at that point we had moved really quite well, far along, and coordinating with you all too with the strategic planning so that they're compatible and consistent. And that was really helpful for us, I must say, to get that feedback and all the information that we did through this strategic plan. In the process, we learned that our main themes, which were vitality and connectivity, resilience and sustainability, opportunity and growth, which we paired, became our goals. And actually, this is when our vice chair, Bob Reinhardt, came on board and wanted to kind of hone it down, distill it. We were sort of information gathering for a long part, and then it was important to reduce it to something that was really impactful. So out of that process, we established 7 policies for Madison, and I'm gonna turn it over to Bob if that's okay. Talk about that process of using a matrix to, all the different things we had gathered for the natural environment and the built environment, using those themes, then became goals, policies, and actions. So can you explain that a bit?
So I'm not sure how much you all have seen or familiar with what we've come up with so far, and I'm not sure what you've seen and what's new in this document, but what Carol's talking about is we took those dual themes at the beginning and broke them down into 3 goals, which are very specific. And those are on page 50 if you haven't seen those before. But basically it's just a rephrasing of the dual tracks that we had before, but a little more succinct, I think, and specific that would then allow us to build the policies and the actions that we follow. Next thing we did is we broke down, instead of doing a built and natural environment concept of here's a built environment, here's what we do about that. We said that's just background. And the reality is it's built environment, natural environment, and human environment. Is that the SCROG one?
Yeah, that's the regional one,
Regional.
yeah.
So the human one is kind of. It's
Everywhere.
redundant. It's the only reason to have it is the human environment. But that's, so we just took those three as well and basically informed the development of the policies. So I'm not sure the policies have changed much. There are 7. They're on page 51. We continue to try to tighten them up to be as they're aspirational, but at the same point, they have enough detail in them or enough to it so you can start developing the goals around them and underneath it. So we went through those, and then for each of those, we developed goals. So if you think of the policies as a strategy for attaining the 3 goals that we set forward, then underneath that are sub-goals to help you implement the strategy. So each of them has between, 3, 5, 6 different sub-goals. That's where the rubber's gonna hit the road. That's what we take in the implementation plan and assign it to an entity. So every goal will have a group saying, this is yours, you have to do it.
So, yeah, there's 7 policies, there's 28 sort of
28,
action
okay.
items, yeah.
And that'll be in the implementation plan. We'll look at that real quick. And then underneath those, we started balancing out excuse me. Beautiful weather, but bad for allergies.
Apologies.
So in each of the policies, then we have those goals, and each goal, we started putting specific tasks that we wanted the entity who owned the goal to achieve. And we realized quickly that we were getting very specific, and we're getting it to being a bit of a micromanager situation. So instead, what we decided was each of the policies has those goals. The goals are laid out. We'll give it to someone and say, this is your job, and please make sure you consider the following. So in each of those, there's a couple that we thought were very important. So in the policy A, create an accessible community that fosters easy connections, and the rest. The goal 1 is create a downtown development plan to include the entire downtown village district. That's the goal. But then we had 3 sub-tasks that we said, you have to consider this. And so the first one was balancing commercial and residential requirements. So the idea is that we can assign the creating a downtown development plan to someone and say, you have to consider commercial and residential. It must be addressed. You can't just pretend it's not. You can say, I did, we didn't do anything, but you have to consider it. We did that for everyone, just to give them more color commentary of sorts, just to kind of get things going in the right direction. So there's multiple pages of this if you haven't read it.
Well, also, I just wanted to say again, there's a lead entity, and then we realized
Yeah.
there are partner entities. And that's really important, and that was important in how we structured this, and this is how actually the Board of Selectmen ended up being a lead entity on 10 of
Yeah,
our
we have a request.
items. And that's what actually,
Waiting for the punchline.
we would really appreciate when you get a chance to read through it all and
Yes.
see get to the implementation table and see, what we've tasked you all to do. See if it makes sense. If you wanna, push back, give us feedback, whatever, have a larger conversation, just focusing on that. That might make sense too in the future, if you feel comfortable doing that.
And if you go to page 60 where the implementation plan, everything is there, the goals are there, then the policy is there, and each of the sub-goals for each policy are there as well. So now we have a slight disagreement on the commission with respect to the Board of Selectmen being lead entities. I don't think you should be. I think you're the executive branch in charge of making sure it happens and not doing it. So the request is either to accept this, your assignment as the lead entity, or tell us who you want to assign it to.
I nominate the Board of Finance.
That might not be. a
Well
good
played,
one.
well played.
I mean, we struggled with it, and it's
Yeah.
actually, it's been really, I think, really productive to have
Yeah.
that kind of conversation of like, how do we do this?
I'm looking through these.
Well, can you, can you pick one of these policies that you did have discussion around and what were the alternate ideas?
Sure, I mean, we can even start, they're 10, because they're 10, I wrote them down,
You have the alternates?
for the
They assign it?
preparation. No, I don't have
I can
alternates,
just
but,
say that.
but let's just give you an example of like the first policy, A, to create a multimodal transportation master plan. And I think, you know, our thinking is that you all oversee the big picture, the budget, you know, what government can do. And so, correct me or add to this, please, but, you know, that's how we were thinking, well, this could be the Board of Selectmen then, because they have the resources and the access and the knowledge, to deal with this kind of big project.
Right, I disagree.
This is why Bob's here tonight.
This is great.
So-
This is great.
There's no commission or committee that could be assigned to this right now. You have to either.
And I think that's why.
On that one
That's
specific.
why
one.
the Board of Selectmen is the right entity, because what we do routinely
Mhm.
is create ad hoc
And restructure.
committees that
Exactly.
are
You can take
delegations.
it on and delegate the
that-
responsibility.
Right, so
Yeah.
we routinely delegate
It's great.
task-oriented things.
Right,
And
yeah.
so if the parent responsibility lies with us, we can then delegate
Absolutely.
as we see
Set
fit.
that ad committee and tell them it's their job. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again,
Same thing.
in the strategic plan, there was, you know, there was discussion about restructuring some of the commissions and ad hoc committees and cleaning house, I would say, in terms of all of those groups. And, you know, then we're throwing out these policies that combine and recombine and shift and, you know, look at things slightly differently than what we've done in the past. So it would be, yeah, it would be great to have you delegate and create commissions or committees or ad hoc or whatever
Yeah, and
makes
an ad
sense.
hoc committee that you
Maybe get rid
created.
of something too. I mean, maybe
And
there's some
maybe
that
clean,
retire.
yeah.
Well, and note that town staff is on all of them.
Town staff is there.
So that's also, you know, a challenge that we always face because of the,
Death
and-
by committees.
yes, because it's their, you know, they're not paid extra to be sitting in all these night meetings, you know, so
Yeah.
it is kind of a challenge. And then there's the administrative piece of it, we were just talking about, you know, we're stretched on getting people to do minutes and then run hybrid meetings if, you know, there are a lot of people in attendance, and then finding hybrid meeting spaces, because we're
Mhm.
getting crunched now, everybody wants to do hybrid and we don't have a lot of resources, so that's not to distract from what you're saying, but I think this is good, because it opens the conversation up, because I've struggled with it too, like, where does this land, who's gonna do it?
And how do you actually implement it?
Yeah, and we're kind of wrestling with this in the strategic plan, and I owe the board here a follow-up on that, because we had started an implementation plan that we're struggling with. I have some solutions, but it probably won't kick in until July 4th, not July 4th, July 1st with the new budget. You know, who's gonna kind of shepherd a lot of that stuff, because you also need somebody to coordinate all this also.
Yeah.
So, but I like the way this is laid out, and I have to compliment you on the goals. I thought were well written and better written than some of our strategic planning goals, because we struggle with things, words, and but this is, I think, it's well written. I don't know who's the good writer in the group, but maybe it's Tyke, but I thought you did a good job with some of
Well,
the
I think
words.
yeah, we gave Tyke sort of the raw material and then John Guskowski cleaned it, and his team cleaned it up
Yeah,
for
good,
us.
good. So, but some of this, I thought, "Hey, that sounds so much better than what we have in the strategic plan."
I mean, you know, just to back up a little for a second too, remember that from planning and zoning perspective, you know, our zoning regulations and our maps are our comprehensive plan, and the plan of conservation and development is our master plan. It's how we think of it, and that's different from the strategic plan. So, you know, again, I don't think, Peggy, you should be comparing too much or feeling that, you know.
Well, but these are overlapping, like transportation. That was the
Sure.
highlighted thing in the strategic plan as
No,
well. So
I
there's
mapped
a-
the
yeah.
strategic plan maps to this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's
which is
no
great.
gaps other than things
love
that
hearing
we don't
that.
care about.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, which is great.
And we
So,
mapped it to Scrog and the state.
Yeah.
so I have some thoughts on bandwidth. I like that you've made the effort to put a priority next to everything.
We argued about that.
One of the
Yeah.
One of the organizational dilemmas in assigning priority is that everything becomes urgent
Yeah.
and then what value is that label, right? The high versus the low. So everything can't be high.
Right.
And you almost have to be arbitrary and say, sort of like grading on the curve, you can
Yeah.
have one high, two moderates and three lower.
Forced
We didn't even
distribution or
Right.
something,
use
right?
low in the end, did we? Yeah.
I
But
think you don't need.
the other way I would love to see you look at this is the lead entity and the prioritization that they've got. And if you've got one lead entity with 5 high priority projects, you're very likely going to overwhelm them. And so that might be a second
Or the board of
filter.
selectmen with 10.
Well, but any volunteer organization in town, which is virtually all of these, I think to be sensitive to the number of high priorities that any lead entity has, and maybe come up with some sort of admittedly arbitrary cap on what that is.
What about the idea of just not having priorities?
I like the idea of having priorities because it's you guys saying these are the things that should be paid attention to first. So
And if there
I
are
think
28 action items, I can't imagine like 28 can be all worked at the same time too.
well, that's
Right,
why
mean,
that's why I said
some
this is a
are sequen-
bandwidth
Some are
issue.
sequential, in fact, where you have to,
Yeah.
start with a master plan and then
Right.
work it out.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that when I first talked to you about the 2013 Plan of Conservation and Development, there were over 100 action items and only, by our count, only really about 13 got done. Some are in progress, so that's not including some others. So when we looked at it, we thought, okay, we don't want that many, we want to narrow it down as much as we can. So, yeah, so within 28, we have prioritized high and moderate.
I think it's good to do that, and I think it's, what we should review that and, and say, well, if we're unanimous in saying that is a low priority for the board, you have to decide to reflect that, right? Because some of the stuff is gonna be in your house, right? Your house as a commission.
Yep.
And we wanna know if there's gonna be conflict with that, right? If somehow,
Conflict for town resources.
Yeah, right, well, yeah, so I think it would be good to know what you think the priorities are and are for your commission and for the town, and then we can kind of weigh in on that.
You can always call it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 if you wanted to get away from the
Okay.
priority language.
Yeah, it's more wave as opposed to how certain you get them done or how quickly you get them done.
Right.
Maybe all of them need to get done.
Well, I think that their existence on here speaks to a need to get them done. It's a question of the reality of phasing and sequencing that has to happen. We're not an unlimited resource organization, so.
Right, but we don't want to be in a position of the 100 action items and 13 get done in
Right.
10 years. I mean, that's pretty lame, so.
I mean, also keep in mind that we do think of this as a living document and priorities may change and new
Of
things
course.
may appear that
They
we
should.
didn't anticipate,
Yeah.
like a pandemic.
You could do like however you tier high, medium, but you can say each policy has one number 1.
So,
And then one number 2 and everything else is,
so to my way of thinking, you just be very cold and calculated
Oh,
and
yeah.
say in this group, in any
it's not-
group, there's only one high priority.
Exactly.
And then,
Yeah.
and
I
then
thought about that.
Two-
I like that approach.
level 2s, and then the rest of them
Yeah.
are all level 3s.
And
It forces some really hard critical thinking about what is in there.
Right,
And to put them at tier 3 within the group doesn't mean they're not important,
right,
but it just means that if we have to do something in sequence, that this one's gonna come first.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
kind of like with the strategic planning process, remember the sticky notes on everybody that attended that, all of a sudden had to pick 3 priorities and
Right.
put a sticky note on the topic, and that's all of a sudden you saw this flood, and then the other one maybe just had a couple,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kinda,
kind of dramatic.
So you kinda-
If
you kinda-
wanna, also if you wanna take a whack at the implementation table
Yes, please.
and put those numbers in there
yeah.
as you see these issues and actions.
You guys are so much more intimate with the document and the logic behind their existence in here.
Okay,
I think ours would be really arbitrary
okay.
and uninformed. at
Well,
this
but
point.
I think it would be helpful, I think it would be good for us to have an opportunity to give you direct, like more specific comments, right? So that we've read this now thoroughly and
Maybe
some
agree on
of
the
that.
number ones too.
Or maybe we could at least, come in with some thoughts on it,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to, I'm thinking, do we do kind of a work session maybe? It doesn't have to be with the whole commission, maybe where we can just kind of work with you and
Even just the
give.
two of you.
And, you know, and
Yeah.
you're kind of just listening to our thoughts and you
You can have us
incorporate.
argue in front of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Be fantastic.
Happy to do that.
Oh, we can do that now.
Okay. Fine.
Well, and I think we did,
Makes the
like,
world go round.
we, you know, the strategic plan and I think the charter, that was something where the commission, you know, we had the opportunity to go page by page, right? And just kind of not wordsmith, but more just provide perspective, like, you know, you could carve out an hour and just call it like a work session or
Yeah.
something. It's still be a public meeting, but
great.
not like formal, and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Just also so you know,
yeah.
this is like this latest draft that you just received last week, I think, is what we're calling the public hearing draft.
Right,
So
this is
that
the one-
we're
This is-
really not
yeah.
gonna touch it until the public hearing
Fair.
happens
Yeah.
on July 11th.
Yeah.
We can take lots of comments, feedback, and, you know, make notes and toward changing it. Again, once we get public feedback formally.
so you think maybe after the public hearing would be better to have that work session, or? would
I
you
think
want it before?
whatever you all are comfortable with, it doesn't
I think
matter.
I think you do it before, because
Yeah.
we'll just take it as part of the feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I promise not to read it anymore, because I kept changing it.
But,
But-
Yeah, to get them to stop.
Even
Okay,
though
we're-
it's like I
we're
still
done.
have
We're
things I
done.
wanna
Yeah.
tweak, but I wanna hear back
Yeah.
from more than just us.
Well, and
See
maybe
what it
for
is.
us, it might be good to hear the feedback first too, before we.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
whichever way
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
you know,
everyone
so
did.
maybe we do.
I
it
mean, we
after
sent
the
it to
public
all the
hearing.
stakeholders who were listed in the
Yeah.
appendix, I think. Erin sent it all to all of them too.
So
And
maybe,
we're starting to get some feedback, even,
okay,
you know, individual feedback, you know, we're just collecting it at this
Yeah.
point, but we can't make a change to the document.
right,
Until
because
after
now
the
it's,
public hearing.
it's complete.
Then it goes back before you all for final approval.
So maybe we wait till after that, because then there's an interim part after that, and you'll have our feedback after the
Mhm.
public hearing.
Because then we can digest the
Together.
public feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'd have one last, you know,
Go around.
go around when it is pretty much finalized. So, okay, so we'll plan on after the July 11th public hearing.
I had one final comment. I think there's another partner entity that we can lean on more heavily here, and that's the land trust. I notice they're included under the inventory of policy B. But I think when it comes to open space planning or land acquisition, they could be a major partner entity on that. And so I think some direct conversations with them may help fill out policies and goals and how to implement them. It's a real resource that we should lean on.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could touch base again on the idea of the ad hoc committees to take the place of the board. It might be as simple as just looking at who the partner entities are and taking the leadership of 3 or 4 of them and saying, you're the ad hoc committee, and saying, you got it, so
Right.
come up with a fancy name or something, but
Yeah.
then at least they've got the resources to make it happen and have this sense of responsibility. Because otherwise you all have to talk about each of these, 10 of these
Yeah,
every month for the next 10 years. Which I'm gonna be watching.
That's a great selling point. Well played.
yes, no, but that's a great way
I like
to,
the ad hoc idea.
yeah, and I think, because I look at like transportation, for example, and you'd want to include the police department, you know, because they
Yeah.
have local area traffic authority and those types of things, so.
The challenge with the ad hocs, though, the only, at least in our experience, is you still require them to come back and, you know, provide the input or recommendations back to the
Yeah.
board of selectmen, so we would still need to act at some
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah,
there's still a
well-
conversation and think about how many boards and commissions.
Yeah.
So it's something we need to think about.
Well, just for example, I just picked
To
up
the retirement.
transportation because that was the first one, but we would have to join, you know, the Astoria Transit or River Valley Transit District, so the
Correct.
steps that the board would be required to take
Mhm.
to do some of these measures, you know, so.
Yeah.
The board will be involved in everything that comes out of this, I think, because it's gonna, it's a zoning regulation type stuff, you know, because it would require an ordinance, or it would be a thing of the budget, or a grant, or a project, you know, so.
Yeah.
And put it into our plan, our
Yeah,
CIP or
right,
whatever.
CIP,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, so, Okay, great. Well, you guys have made tremendous progress and we're excited to see how the public receives it. And then we'll be ready. And after that, could schedule something to give some feedback directly to you. But I appreciate all the hard work
Yeah,
and
it's
compliment
amazing.
Sarah too. and-
Wow.
When you read it, please criticize it as hard as you can.
This is awful.
Thank you. All I ask is to be constructive.
Be gentle.
Oh, well.
He wants you to be
You
gentle.
should have led with that.
Tell us why it's awful.
Well, I will say, I tend to be a wordsmither, but I remember the affordable housing plan, I didn't really feel a need to wordsmith, and I'm not seeing a lot of, that's not, I'm not necessarily the best, communicator either, so, but I just tend to overanalyze words sometimes,
When I
so,
edit things, I edit
Yeah.
without thinking, I just
Yeah.
edit,
yeah,
no feelings, just.
Yeah.
And
And
so what I'm asking is, don't hold back.
yeah,
don't hold
and I
us
think
to a
you'll get, the public will certainly take you, take up that
Well,
advice.
but that's an interesting point, though. So
Yeah,
again, the public
Yeah.
needs to be informed about what this is, sort of the time that we're at right now and the input needed. And I
Yeah,
guess, how do we
yeah.
market this to some extent?
Yeah, I
so
think
to
we should
ensure
start
that we get the
promoting,
feedback.
you
We've
know,
had,
like we
we've
did
had a
for
lot
this.
of public feedback.
Okay,
We've had
good.
Public, we've had other stakeholder
Yeah.
feedback. I mean,
Good.
they even helped, some people helped write it.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and we have certain people who've been at many of our meetings.
Okay,
And
good.
are happy with where we've landed
Yeah.
and, to
Good.
get their support after,
Right, but I think the idea, I
criticism.
would say 90% of the people in medicine don't know what a POCD
Well,
is.
that was my
Right,
word.
right,
So,
right.
I'd like to
yeah.
get that down lower.
Exactly.
So at least they know what it is, so they can.
well, and maybe we put out some sort of educational material as we lead up to the public hearing, because
Yeah.
we can promote things, as you know, with strategic plan, we
Yeah.
did get a
It's a
lot
did
of
you know
like
or
interesting,
something.
Yeah.
And is this draft available on?
I checked and it was not on our POCD
It was
website.
just, well, it was hot off the presses on Tuesday.
Yeah, last
So
week.
last week, or Wednesday.
so maybe like in a week,
We
we
need to get
start
it up
pushing
there.
out,
Yeah.
with the link. And then similar to the strategic plan, a little marketing program, like, hey, you should take a look at this, read this,
Yes,
that you submit your,
absolutely.
so is there an email,
And
do you have
with
an
the
email
date,
address that
mark your
comments get done?
calendar for the public
Right.
hearing.
But I think more than anything too, it's talking about, I think where you guys started, which was the synergies between the strategic plan
Right,
and POCD. So we don't perceive them as two separate documents, that they're integrated, that they're connected. I think that's really important.
Yeah,
and I thought when we had our hearing after we had a draft, there was a couple of things we just missed in it, we were like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, the
What?
public
missed
stuff,
Yeah, there was two or
Really, they
three
caught
things
some
I remember,
really
we were
good
like,
Yeah, you're right.
great point, it just never came up in any of our conversations
Right.
with the public, I mean, we had 75, 80 people at the, public, at one of the, not the retreat, but the.
but it was one of our public information
Yeah.
sessions, I think
Yeah.
it was, yeah, and members of the
Yeah.
public, Key and I
Focus
caught some
groups.
really good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
And, this is so well organized, I think, it's a lot of pages, but I think it's easy to break it down and read through a little bit at a time.
you
and-
can also just click in the table of contents and get right to the.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I do think people are gonna be interested in seeing this, especially since we just went through
Mhm.
the strategic planning process and like to Scott's point, the more we can do to highlight how these these two documents mesh together and they're not in combat with one another, but supportive of one another. And just, get it out there so people can read it.
Can I ask a rookie question? And I should know this after 8 years on the Board of Selectmen, but how often do we, I think the goal of the strategic plan, POCD, et cetera, is not to put it on a shelf, right? So how often are we referencing this document when making rulings, et
Well,
cetera?
in zoning, it's referenced
all the
at
time.
every meeting,
Yeah.
I think,
Awesome.
An application
application references it.
tries to say how what they're proposing is
Yeah.
supported by the previous POCD, which is why we're also eager to get this one out. But yeah, from within planning and zoning, it's very much
I love
part
it.
of our lifestyle.
And I think grant applications, it's a big deal for certain grant applications.
That's
They wanna
true.
know
To help
for
guide
sure.
them.
Yeah,
Yes,
to
it's-
say, and it's supported and it's, a priority in our
Yeah.
POCD.
And I think with our new ad hoc facility committee as well, they just had their first meeting last
Great
week.
point. Yeah,
What they're
yeah,
being
yeah.
charged with, there's so many pieces of this that I think they're gonna be referencing from both our strategic plan and
We hope
the
so.
POCD.
Yeah.
I think we need to influence that. Yeah, it's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, the facilities.
I think we want to help, we want to leverage these resources as much as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah.
Get it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I think this
To your
is
point of living and
plan,
breathing.
yeah.
that kind of regular, you know, like in the budget, I tried to highlight things, how everything meshed with things that were, but we need to kind of put that in more common daily practice, and we'll get there, we're just
Yeah.
gonna, it takes
Yeah.
time.
And yeah, our CIP committee, it'll be, you know,
Yeah, so
important
this
for
next
us
year,
to
they
be
will
using
have
this
that CIP,
document.
and maybe they have to start assigning a category when they look at these projects, how does that?
Point
fall
to an
in
action
line?
item or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
how does it relate, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
it's the, the two special exceptions before the commission right now, there's only two right now.
Yeah.
We reference heavily the current P O C D
Oh, interesting.
in supporting their argument to get these special exceptions. So it's an important document because it does set the course for a lot of development in the town, and how we spoke to one of the attorneys, he said, I look at it all the time when I get a request to see if the request fits.
mhm.
And if it fits, then it's good. So it's important.
It is.
Perfect.
Okay,
Great.
great, all right, well, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Follow-up,
Appreciate
and Thank
you.
you for coming tonight, so.
Thank
Yeah, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Don't work too hard on it, Bob. You're not allowed to.
The document is live.
It's sealed, it's in the lockbox. Okay.
So moving on to item number 9, and I'm going to make an amended motion. I think you got the memo about that. So to discuss and take action to approve awarding a contract for general conditions and fees of $1,540,667,000 plus pre-construction fees of $111,900 for construction management services for the Polson Auditorium HVAC and generator project to Gilbane Company as recommended by the Polson Building Committee.
So move.
Second.
Okay, great. So, I don't know, do we have anybody here? I can't remember. I don't think, was Bill gonna be on for this?
Bill isn't, but Peter.
No.
he said he
Oh,
could.
Peterson, sorry, I didn't see it. I didn't look up. Great. So, yeah, if you could just explain this for a minute, and we got the updated memo today that, you know, adding in the pre-construction costs.
So, what we have is, we have the Polson HVAC project along with the generator. So we needed to contract a construction management firm with the horsepower behind them to get this complicated project up and underway. So that's what we actually have done and proposed to. And Gilbane was our winning bidder out of the bid solicitation that we'd had about a month ago.
And I asked Billy, it's the low bidder too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And obviously excited to keep this moving forward. And I know these are grant-related projects, and we're tracking everything appropriately and handling the RFP process according to the grants, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great.
Peter, remind us, when will this start? Once
This is 2025.
2025, and would it be over the summer? Or would they be?
It's
doing
going to be
it
a
in-
multi-year project because we're going to be doing it with kids in the building,
Okay.
which adds a whole nother level of complication.
Yes, it does. Good times.
And I think we talked about probably in another couple of months, the building committee and the facilities department will be able to come to us to talk about that timeline in more detail, because they're kind of working a lot of this out, but they need to design it, and figure out, and then sequence it, so.
Tricky.
So I think I heard maybe June or July, right? Peter?
There's a lot of moving parts on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably be closer to the beginning of June, I think, is what the target date is going to be.
Yeah, so we'll
Nice.
be hearing back from them hopefully in June, maybe, a kind of more of the sequencing and everything, so.
Fantastic.
Any further questions on item number 9?
This is great to see this moving forward.
Yeah.
So.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, all right, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
So moving on to item number 10 is, we're gonna be voting on, the grant matching to a grant, but, the update on the Concord Meadows Route 1 sideway project. And so I thought John could give an update on this, because this is something that's been in the works for a while. We're excited to move this, see this moving forward. So this is basically from Concord Meadows, which is on, why am I going blank on the name of the road now? Woodland Road. So the sidewalk would go from there, which is our largest affordable housing complex, up to Route 79, and then from Route 79 all the way down to Route 1. So now we'll have a completed sidewalk connecting with our Bradley Road sidewalk and with our downtown sidewalk. So And these, we had received 2 grants for this, actually. One was a STEEP grant and one was a TOD grant. And there's municipal match associated with it. This has been on our list of matching requirements, so no surprises. But John, if you could just do you have a schematic of the project, just so everybody can see it? It'd be nice for the public to see.
I don't have that. No, I'm out of state and I'm on my phone here, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I just anticipated this to be a basically what you said, an overall description of what the project is.
So maybe we can offer to put on the website though, just somewhere, the actual overview of the project. So
Sure.
people can see where the sidewalks are going and stuff, because I think it's exciting that this is something.
Yeah,
It's
huge.
gonna really change the connectivity of downtown and a safe place for people to walk now. Especially you go to the end of Bradley Road and there's no, and then does this go down, I just forget all the streets it touches.
You mentioned, so it's from Concord Meadows, so it will extend from the existing sidewalk on Woodland Road at Concord Meadows all the way out to Route 79. And then the sidewalk extends down Route 79 along the westerly side of the highway, all the way to Route 1. So it'll connect to the existing sidewalk on Route 1. And then there's a little spur that will extend on Bradley Road to the west to the existing sidewalk near Academy Street.
Margaret's in there, yeah.
Yes, so there'll be connectivity from Bradley Road, from the east side of Bradley Road over to the west side. And it's gonna sort of interconnect some of the existing sidewalk in that area.
And what is the timing of everything?
So the timing, the following agenda items here, we received 5 bids for construction, and the low bidder bid amount was a little bit under the project budgeted amount. So if this gets approved tonight, the only other approval we're waiting for is from DOT to approve the award to the lowest responsible bidder, and we anticipate that within a week. And the contractor is ready to go. So I anticipate that this project will begin in a matter of a couple of weeks or a few weeks, and it'll take place during the summer. We've given them they have until the fall, November of the fall, to complete this, but I don't expect it to take that long. Hopefully, if all goes well and weather cooperates.
So one important thing, because it will be a summer construction project, is make sure they understand some of the community activities that are going to be going on this summer, and they're going to have to think that through in terms of construction scheduling. Just saying, with the parades. The Rotary Carnival is over behind in the Academy Fields and things like that. So you might want to give them those dates, as they're doing their planning.
Closing day of Little League.
Right. Yes, that's a good idea. And we'll have a pre-construction meeting. We can go over those dates, key dates of any functions that are going on.
Okay.
And and there's a staging area. Fortunately, the town garage is nearby, near the beginning of the sidewalk project. So there'll be areas to leave equipment and stage materials and so forth. So it should work out pretty nice.
Traffic on 79, do you think a lot, or is it mostly off-road types of, activity?
There'll be definitely traffic control required along Route 79. The sidewalk is fairly well off the road, but you need to have delivery trucks of material, gravel and concrete. So there's definitely traffic control is a big component of the project.
Okay, well, obviously we got to get these things moving along as we wait for the price goes up. So yeah. So maybe if there's no more questions, we can just go through the next 2 items, right? So item number 11 is discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation of $100,000 for municipal match of the state TOD grant relating to the Concord Meadows Route 1 sidewalk project and CIP, approved by the Board of Finance on 4/18/24.
Second.
Okay, any further questions or comments? No?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 12, discuss and take action to approve a contract with William M. Layden Construction for construction of the Concord Meadows to Route 1 sidewalk project pending the Connecticut Department of Transportation approval to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder and authorizing the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with this award.
Move.
Second. Okay, any further comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are in good shape for that, John, so move forward,
Okay.
excited about it. And
Thanks, John.
we'll try to put
Great,
up some
thank you.
materials once we move forward on this, just so the public can look up and look at the
Sure.
map, you know, all that kind of stuff, so.
We'll put that on the website. Yep.
Yeah, that would be good, because it is gonna be a busy time while this is gonna be going on, so, thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank
Okay, item number 13, is discuss and take action to accept the donation of the, Thelia property, 1.39 acres on Cops Road, map 65, lot 1, and authorizing the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with this donation pending Board of Finance approval.
So moved.
Second. And this came to us in the fall. We're very grateful for this donation that's out of an estate. The property is adjacent to Bauer Park. Excited to just add this to the Bauer Park. And so it went through planning and zoning, right? We sent it on for a referral there, which we're required to do. And now they've done all the documentation and everything, and we're ready to move forward.
There's no house on the property. of this-
No.
No,
Is it more wetlands? And-
yeah, a lot of wetlands. There's no like building possibilities on there. Just
Yeah,
contiguous with Bauer Park.
it's a
No,
pond,
no
right?
trails or anything that we can add or,
Not in that area.
okay,
Um,
open space.
Any other questions about this?
No.
No? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So we're excited to move that forward. Next item on the agenda is item number 14, discuss and take action to award a contract to Greenway Property Services, Inc. for the renovation of the Exchange Field Complex in the amount of $557,000 and rock excavation in the amount of $650 per cubic yard, funded through CIP, and authorizing the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with this award.
So moved.
Okay, and this is a very exciting project that we were very excited to move forward. Exchange Field, it was in
Long time
CIP,
coming.
yeah. So this will move quickly now, right? You're gonna
This
get,
will move quickly, so after this approval, we'll be able to award the contract to the bidder. And they will start, almost immediately. And the plan is to have the field opened by August 1st,
That's amazing.
for youth football.
Wow.
Yeah, and the contractor is extremely confident that they're able to complete it in our timeline.
Wow.
It's tight, it'll be working, all through, really May through June, and then a growing 4 weeks for the sod, and then be ready to go.
Is that softball field that's there going offline during this?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
and this is another, I know you've talked to all the leagues and
Mhm.
everything,
Yeah.
but we'll probably do some promotion to the public to know this area is closed off, especially during 4th of July and all. It's gonna create some issues for the fireworks,
walking
yeah,
through,
because we can't do that exit route, so we're working through all that because of this.
Austin, how will the appearance change, if at all?
From the naked eye, you won't know anything, except that it'll be a better playing field. Right now on the football field that you see, there's a lot of ruts and humps and jumps that are in there, that will all be completely leveled out. And then there'll be just irrigation, put on that field and, extra.
Dust bowl.
Right, and then irrigation throughout the entire exchange field up to where it turns into the Lowry Field by the batting cage.
Oh, so we didn't on the soccer fields have irrigation in the past?
Not in many years.
Wow, it wasn't working, so it wasn't operational.
Yeah, so this will allow us to have irrigation, to irrigate the entire exchange field.
Yeah, that's a layer, yeah, wow.
This is a little bit off topic, but I notice there are a lot of people, I say a lot, I see regularly people with their dogs off leash on those fields. I hope they're very, very diligent in cleaning up after their animals.
No, they're not.
But I mean, our kids are playing sports on these fields,
Right.
contact sports.
Soccer and football, I mean, yeah.
On these
falling.
fields, they're on the ground regularly.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's something we need to do to do better at policing this or more public information, but
Yeah.
there's a
so-
lot of spaces for people to take their
I gotta think
dogs.
Salt Meadow's probably the same thing.
Right, so Salt Meadow, like Jen was saying earlier, that hole that was dug, that could not have been a dog that was on a leash. It was somebody off leash.
Yeah, it was on a soccer field.
Bauer Park, we run into people using the bags that we put out, but then throwing the bags into the woods and not using the trash receptacles out of there. It's a problem everywhere. At Surf Club, because we're on site, 12, 13 hours a day, we're able to police it. At the other sites, it's difficult to do. We have signage everywhere.
Yeah.
Even if there was no signage, you really shouldn't let your dog, do that kind of stuff on a playing field.
Mhm.
But it's difficult to police, and we run into issues all the time.
Is there an ordinance? I know there's a leash ordinance. I know that your dog's supposed to be on a leash. Is there an ordinance around puppy waste?
I don't believe so.
Pooping and scooping.
Yeah.
So, we had looked like, I guess it was a year ago, at the beach and rec ordinances. Remember, we looked at some of them for the facility. We never really did a follow-up after that. I think we got caught up in so many different things last year. But that could be another item to add to that. We should revisit that, because we talked a lot about some of the ordinance, ambiguity.
The question is who polices it?
Smoking, we talked about drinking
Yeah.
of marijuana, or, being
Yeah.
legal now,
Right,
cannabis use, so.
Right.
We kind of had a bunch of conversations. I know we followed up with our town council a little bit, but maybe we add that and we kind of refresh that conversation. Because they're ancient, the ordinances for the beaches.
I think we at least
so.
refresh them to current, but
Yeah.
I think the question is, who polices them?
Well,
Is
I
it,
know.
is it a 16-year-old kid working
Yeah, it is.
8?
It
Is
is.
it the?
And that could easily be added to the leash ordinance, probably. That's a good place for that to live.
But did the police ever get called for things like that?
Well, that can be issued by the beach and rec, and then they can appeal it to the police department. Can't you, for ordinances for parking?
I don't think we can't ticket people.
I thought you did for parking and a beach pass. If somebody is parked there without a pass, how do you enforce that?
We don't let them do that anymore. You can't get through the gate without a pass, so we don't run into that anymore.
Okay. I mean, I know you can't get through, but so you've never had anybody where they kind of sneak in through, I'm turning around, and then they don't. turn.
No, we have enough staff to make sure that.
Yeah, yeah, I know, they do, I've seen them do it, actually, I'm just trying to think. Well, to be discussed, I think we'll look into this, it's a fair point, I know it's been a problem, throughout town, I mean, a lot of people have dogs, and particularly when you're dealing with a public facility that is used heavily by,
Youth
kids,
sports,
youth
yeah.
sports, stuff, and at our beaches, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, it's not just unhygienic, like somebody stepping on it and getting it on the shoe. These kids are sliding across the ground, they're getting cuts and scrapes, and now they're getting that biological matter inside their open wounds. And so it's, if that was you or your kid, and you had to deal with a situation like that with fecal matter, you would not be excited about it. So, just pick it up.
Yeah, this is common sense and common courtesy.
Yeah.
I know, we can put as many ordinances together as we want, but it really is about, the public.
Well, so admittedly, this was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah,
So-
okay, we got.
But still, I mean, it's something we gotta talk about.
Well, but I think the point, I think you raised a good point, let's bring back the conversation though about some of the ordinances, because there are some things we wanted to fix.
Just refresh, yeah.
Yeah, refresh it, exactly, that there's some lack of clarity and
The
stuff.
Bauer Park Committee at our last meeting last week spent about a half an hour discussing it.
Yeah, okay.
It's a problem.
So I think all in favor of approving item number 14, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. Item number 15, discuss and take action to approve a revised round 14 ARPA funding request for $49,000 for LED portable lighting towers for Madison Youth Soccer, pending Board of Finance approval.
So, second.
So this was one that had originally come to us a while back, and we were trying to figure out what we actually wanted and what the youth soccer wanted, and also the cost of it and how much the town would be willing to contribute. Was this gonna be something the town bought? Is this something that youth soccer? And so they were trying to figure out what they could contribute, right? So now they've come back with this proposal, and maybe you can walk through the.
Sure. Raquel, Joe Giuliano from Madison Youth Soccer should be on. If we could promote him, please, and I'll, just as he's coming on, so, yeah, so the decision was made between youth soccer and, my department that youth soccer would own them and take full responsibility of the maintenance, which takes that burden off of the town. But the town will still have access to them if needed for emergencies, special events, what have you. But these lights will replace the ones that they rent every year that are, you know, loud, diesel generated, down on Exchange Field with an LED, still generated with a generator, but with a gas generator that are much quieter, more efficient, and the lights are better quality. So it's a win for youth soccer and all the athletes that are involved with that.
Gotta think it helps surrounding neighbors. Right?
So can you guys hear me okay? It's Joe Giuliano.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to echo, and sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I'm actually just leaving Salt Meadow on the field with coaching, but everything that was just said, that's exactly it. It's a lot more efficient, a lot cleaner, and we're not going to.
He's fixing the pothole. We lost you, Joe.
Thank you, Verizon.
We're working on that.
Is that the name of the tower?
And so in the
Here for now.
presentation that we gave, you'll see what they look like.
Oh, yeah.
It's much different than the larger version that they currently rent.
Yeah, they're not like that big contraption, more like feet.
So Austin, who would be using these and when?
So Madison Youth Soccer would use them in the fall. And then they've agreed to allow the town to use it for emergency special events, 4th of July. It's tough when, you know, there's the light that gets dark out pretty early in the fall. So they need those lights on there. And this will just be a better way to do that, and a safer and better way for the student athletes.
Would be responsible for repairs and maintenance?
Madison Youth Soccer.
And where do they get stored?
So Madison Youth Soccer has a storage facility on, I think it's Fort Path, Joe. And then
Yep. I'm back if you guys can hear me. It is 4-path, yes.
And then whatever they can't fit there, we'll find a spot for the one or two that won't fit.
Nice.
And I think there was just general, when we talked about this, I think it was almost 18 months ago now, you know, that we did a number of ARPA awards to youth athletic leagues, you know, to improve, because outdoor, as part of the spirit of COVID, was a lot of people were, you know, looking for outdoor recreation activities and, you
Looks
know,
like a dinosaur.
so if there's any further discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye, great.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for,
Plan.
you know.
So sorry about the interruption. I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
All good.
Great, thank you.
It's just another great partnership with a local youth sports organization in the town that.
And they're contributing a lot of money. For
Yeah,
that.
I mean, to see what Little League did, now what
Yeah,
youth soccer's doing,
exactly.
this is
So it's
amazing,
great.
so.
Yeah, so it's a good partnership. Item number 16, discuss and take action to approve calling a special town meeting at Town Campus, Hammonasset Room C on May 20th, 2024, at 6 p.m. for the following purpose: to approve an application from Saltwater Property Group LLC and Saltwater Property Group 2 LLC under the Town of Madison Tax Incentive Assessment Deferral Program for an assessment deferral of no more than 5 years, approved by the Board of Selectmen on 3/12/24 and the Board of Finance on 3/18/24.
So moved.
Second.
So this is just required for this to have a town meeting, and I tried to couple these a little bit, so we don't have to like have it separate, and it's before a Board of Selectmen meeting and then before another public hearing. So any questions or comments?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. Item number 17, discuss and take action to call a public hearing on May 20th, 2024 at 6:30 PM at Town Campus Room A on Zoom to hear comment on submissions of the 2024 DRS Neighborhood Assistant Act Tax Credit Program.
Move.
Second.
And this is another thing that we're required as part of this grant application program, that is, if I recall, I don't know if Stacy's still on, but I think this was through, what's the name of it?
Is it Wellington?
Wellington, yeah, that's like, that they want to apply for this grant, and so we were just a facilitator for it. So we're not accepting the grant, we're not taking terms, we're just a facilitator, but the public hearing is required as part of the grant application, so.
We've done this for Concord Meadows many
Yes,
times.
yes.
Yeah,
As they've
the
gone
CBGG,
and sought
yeah.
money,
Correct.
we have to be the official
That's right.
organization, right?
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Well, moving on to citizens' comments. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a public comment. I do not see any hands raised. I'm gonna call it once.
No hands raised.
Okay, great. Yep, calling twice. And with that, I guess, hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Awesome.
All right, great.
Thanks,
Thank you, Raquel.